There was a time when the first question you asked a new friend wasn't, "What's your number?" It was, "What's your PIN?" Walk into any Nigerian university between 2009 and 2013, and one thing was obvious. Everyone wanted a Blackberry. BBM pins were exchanged like phone numbers, and the curve and bold became symbols of status, success, and social life. By the early 2010, BlackBerry had become Nigeria's ultimate status symbol, something you showed off. From university campuses to corporate boardrooms, owning a BlackBerry wasn't just about making calls. It was a sign that you'd made it. In 2009, Nigeria's smartphone market was exploding. Smartphones accounted for about 19% of all mobile phone sales, up from just 8% a year earlier, and BlackBerry was one of the brands leading that wave among young Nigerians, government officials, and business professionals who relied on its secure email and legendary keyboard. This impeccable device sat on top of the world. Every quarter seemed bigger than the last. Investors were celebrating. Customers were loyal. Competitors looked defeated. If you had asked anyone then, which smartphone company would still dominate 10 years later, almost everyone would have given the same answer: BlackBerry. And that's exactly what made the next move so unbelievable. While BlackBerry was busy celebrating its greatest success, another company wasn't trying to build a better BlackBerry. It was trying to make BlackBerry irrelevant. Then, in just a few years, it all disappeared. Cheap Android phones from China took over. BlackBerry stopped selling handsets completely, and BBM, the app that once ran Nigerian social life, quietly shut down. BlackBerry entered Nigeria as a premium product. Telecom companies like Globacom marketed it as a mobile office, a device for people who needed real-time email. The early users were exactly who you'd expect: bank executives, oil company staff, people working at the central bank. The blinking red light on the side became a quiet signal that you were somebody important. But the real explosion happened around 2009, when cheaper models like the Curve 8520 hit the market. Suddenly it wasn't just executives, it was students, young professionals, anyone who wanted in. And what pulled them in wasn't email, it was BBM. At the time, internet access in Nigeria was slow and expensive. Then telecom providers started offering flat-rate BlackBerry Internet Service, BIS, for as little as 1,000 to 3,000 naira a month. For that price, you got BBM, plus limited access to Facebook and Twitter, all day, every day. That completely changed how people communicated. SMS was expensive. Regular internet was expensive. BBM was basically free once you had the plan, so everyone switched. By 2012, Nigeria had around 4 million smartphone users, and roughly half of them were on BlackBerry. Some retailers put it even higher, over 40% market share at its peak. And 95% of Nigerian BlackBerry users were active on BBM, a much higher rate than almost anywhere else in the world. Pinging someone became its own verb. Your BBM pin mattered more than your phone number. If you didn't have BBM, you were out of the loop. You missed the gist, the music people were sharing, the group chats, everything. Here's what made the Nigerian market different from the US or UK, where BlackBerry was already struggling. BlackBerry's low data usage made it more affordable to run than an iPhone or a data-heavy Android phone. At a time when Nigeria's mobile networks were still catching up, that alone gave BlackBerry a real advantage here that it didn't have in wealthier markets. There was also the resale value. BlackBerry phones, including second-hand ones brought in from the UK, held their value well, which made them easier to buy and sell across Computer Village and similar markets nationwide. And BlackBerry itself noticed. As sales collapsed in North America and Europe, the company leaned harder into Nigeria and the rest of Africa. By 2014, Africa and the Middle East made up around 40% of BlackBerry's total revenue. Nigeria alone was said to account for about half of the smartphones in circulation, locally being BlackBerry devices, one of BlackBerry's strongest markets anywhere on Earth. For a company falling apart everywhere else, Nigeria was one of the last places still buying in. But the same problems that killed BlackBerry everywhere else eventually caught up here too. Chinese manufacturers like Tecno and Infinix started flooding the Nigerian market with affordable Android smartphones, devices that could do everything a BlackBerry could, and more, for a similar price. Then WhatsApp refused to make its app available on BlackBerry devices. That mattered more than people outside Nigeria might realize. BBM had been the whole reason to own a BlackBerry. Once WhatsApp became the messaging app everyone else was using, and BlackBerry users couldn't join in, the exclusivity that once made BBM special started working against the brand instead. Around 2013, BlackBerry tried to fix this by finally releasing BBM as a free app for Android and iPhone. It was too late, and it undercut the one thing that made owning an actual BlackBerry phone special in the first place. If you could get BBM without buying the phone, why buy the phone? At the same time, industry voices in Nigeria were already sounding the alarm. Telecom leaders publicly said BlackBerry had every advantage in this market, and lost it because it stopped innovating. Globally, the numbers were brutal. BlackBerry went from dominating the smartphone market to a market share so small it barely registered. In Nigeria specifically, the shift happened fast. By 2013, BlackBerry's global sales were collapsing. The company was cutting close to half its workforce and putting itself up for sale, with no serious buyer willing to meet the price. Locally, the brand that had once been the aspiration, the phone everyone wanted, the one that signaled you'd made it, became the phone your uncle still used. Android took over the affordable end of the market. iPhones took over the aspirational end. BlackBerry got squeezed out of both. By 2016, BlackBerry had exited the phone business worldwide. BBM itself limped on for a few more years before finally shutting down for good. The company that Nigerian telecom executives once called unstoppable in this market disappeared from Nigerian pockets almost as fast as it had filled them. The easy version of this story is cheap Android phones killed BlackBerry. That's true, but it's not the real lesson. BlackBerry won Nigeria because it solved a real, local problem. Expensive, unreliable internet. Better than anyone else at the time. That's genuinely impressive. It wasn't luck. It was smart pricing and smart partnerships with local telecoms. But BlackBerry also made the same mistake here that it made everywhere else. It assumed the thing that made it special, its uniquely designed keyboard and BBM's exclusivity, would stay special forever. It didn't adapt fast enough when WhatsApp showed up. It didn't take Android's affordability seriously until Android had already taken the market. And when it finally opened up BBM to everyone, it had already lost the reason people needed a BlackBerry phone in the first place. Nigeria didn't get a different outcome. It just got a slightly later version of the same one. Walk through Computer Village in Lagos today and major phone outlets across the country, and you can still find old BlackBerry phones, sold cheap, mostly bought out of nostalgia, or by people who genuinely still prefer a physical keyboard. But the culture around it is gone. The pinging, the BBM broadcast messages, the add my PIN conversations. That entire language Nigerians built around one phone brand doesn't exist anymore. It's been replaced by WhatsApp groups and Instagram DMs. For a few years, BlackBerry wasn't just a product in Nigeria. It was genuinely part of how an entire generation talked to each other, connected, dated, shared music, and did business. Few tech brands anywhere get to say that. By 2009, they were selling 50 million phones a year, 20% of the world market, $20 billion in revenue. The stock hit $147. They were on top. And being on top is exactly what got them in trouble, especially when the iPhone model changed everything. To be fair, the first iPhone actually was flawed. No 3G, no app. By the time Blackberry Bold 10, BB10 phones finally came out, the iPhone was already on its sixth version. Android had 70% of the world market, and BlackBerry wasn't really competing for customers anymore. BlackBerry still exists today, just not as a phone company. It makes cybersecurity software now, far away from the streets where its name once meant something completely different. Somehow, it's still doing what it always did best, keeping information secure. But in Nigeria, that's not really the story people remember. The BlackBerry story is that a company built the first phone people got addicted to, sat in the pockets of presidents and CEOs, and then watched another company take the entire market away from them, and never got it back. That nostalgic device with the unique keyboard and blinking red notification light wasn't just popular. It was the center of how a generation connected, and an unmatched feeling of importance every time it buzzed. It just turned out that being the center of something isn't the same as staying there. Here lies the lesson. The biggest threat to market leaders isn't always a better competitor. Sometimes, it's believing you're too successful to fail. And somewhere, right now, another company is looking at a new idea, probably dismissing or calling it trash, and convincing itself that its customers will never leave. History says otherwise. This has been Brand Uncovered, where we uncover the stories behind the brands, the empires, and the billion-dollar decisions that shaped Africa and the world. Like, share, and subscribe, because next time, we're uncovering another business mystery hiding in plain sight. Until then, keep asking the question every great entrepreneur should ask. What am I refusing to believe today that everyone else will accept tomorrow?